Hello, welcome to another episode of Crosstalk. My name is Kevin Tocci and I will be your host for this segment. As you may or may not see, we are actually at Hobart Pond in Whitman. It is the one of the many areas in the 7th Plymouth District. Joining us today for this Crosstalk, his name is Brandon James Griffin. And he is a candidate for state representative. Brandon, welcome to the program.
Hello, Kevin. How's it going?
It's going good. So, right out of the gate, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you actually do sit on a town committee or board, correct? Two.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was elected to the planning board in 2021. I also served a year on the Board of Health. I did that to kind of run through COVID stuff. I didn't want to commit to a long term, and then I was appointed to the Community Preservation Committee when Whitman became a CPA town. Want to shout out to some of the people that got that done, especially Justin Evans, and that's been great. We're trying to get it off the road. But off the ground, yeah.
Same thing.
But it's starting to pick up. We put out the initial grant application. We held a public hearing. So CPC funds for projects could essentially start to head out as soon as next year. I mean, so that's a good thing.
What do you like about the service that you're giving to the town, whether as a member of the planning board or the CPC?
To be honest, I love the planning board. The dynamic and the members of that board. It's a mixed group, politically all different aligned, and it's great. We have a good time, and it's important work. We're kind of trying to pick up more responsibilities because planning boards essentially have a lot to do. And that brings me to my little document here. The master plan, which we tracked down, and this was concocted, as you can see, 2004.
18 years ago.
So it's old. We're not rewriting the whole thing. That would be, but we are going to go through it. There are streets that need to be registered, things of that nature. And of course, putting in all of the bylaws. The planning boards are responsible to announce those bylaws, like the cannabis. And if a citizen comes through with a petition, like we recently had to build on lots with existing residences for an in-law, a separate structure, things of that sort. But it's important because it's not just subdivision. There's a lot that goes into it, and we're trying to pick up steam on that. And it's a work in progress, but we've got a great board. Elaine Bergeron, Adam Somerville, Robert Kimball, Wayne Andrews, who's been a zoning board of appeals member for a long time. And yeah, we're starting to pick up and try and do a lot more. So that's a good thing. CPC, my goal on that board, I want to keep my eye on housing, which is one of the 3 categories that those funds are available to be spent on.
Okay. So what made you decide, what was the appeal to running for state representative? Again, state rep you would be, your constituents would be in Abington, Whitman, and East Bridgewater.
Yes.
So what made you decide to I think I'm going to run for state rep.
At first, it started as kind of a side thought. I had looked historically at who has held the district, and on a strictly political level, a lot of politics I don't agree with, but less to that point, more to the lack of competition. I know Miss Sullivan, on her first campaign, she ran against Alex Bezanson, and before that, Jeff Deal had his terms, and I know he had the one race against Mr. Toomey from Abington, but it hasn't been consistently competitive, and that feels kind of like they've got a stranglehold on the town that I live in. And I know there are a lot of people that don't look to certain people, whether justified or not justified, because of their politics, despite them possibly being a nice, kind, sweet person. Because when it comes to politics, that's all that should matter. You could have a very nasty person that will help you, and you have to knuckle up and say, this guy's a jerk, but I agree. And vice versa. But the reason that I specifically wanted to run is because I want to kick a hole in this duopoly.
So basically you're saying is because
we need more parties.
Well, and that's the thing. And so that was my next question is that you're not someone who is doing what a traditionalist would do, and that is I'm going to choose either, well, I should say traditionalist, but somebody who would traditionally either run as three things. I'm going to run as an independent. I'm going to run as a Democrat. That's a popular party. Or a Republican. Another, it's not as popular here in Massachusetts, but it's one of two parties that folks universally know here in the country. Correct. So you actually are with another party. It's a newly formed party, yes?
That's correct. Yep, it's the Workers' Party of Massachusetts, only formed in, the idea started 2019. Dominic Giannone got all the paperwork in to become the political designation in 2020. We set up the PAC. Everything is, and we're hoping to get upgraded to official party status. For those who don't know, a political designation is different than an official party, where in the state now it's the Republicans, the Democrats, the Green Rainbow, and the Libertarian Party. So if our state candidate, which is Dominic Giannone for auditor, gets 3% of the vote, we will be bumped out of designation into official party. And that's a big piece of our campaigns, is to get that party status. But yes, we are left of the Democrats. We don't share a lot of, the liberal sentiments. There are bits and pieces that we agree with. Some folks on the, the Democrat right and the Republican left, that middle ground. Okay. They call themselves dinos and rhinos, that nonsense. That's outside of us. We're a principled group with strict ideologies. If you adhere to them, you can be involved in the party. If you don't, you don't have to. But if you're not going to be on board with the program, you will find somewhere else to, kind of fit in with the Greens or whatever.
So are you saying that the Workers' Party is a super progressive party? Are you saying, because if you're saying that you're left of the liberals?
Yes. If we're speaking in the context of general language in the country, in the state, the word progressive is unfortunately going to get used. So it's not the right terminology.
Okay.
But I understand that a lot of general consensus accepts it as all things left wing, which is not true at all. Progressives are Democrats at the end of the day, and they're still in that umbrella of that corporate structure despite best intentions, and we don't want anything to do with that because, I mean, the leadership of those parties, it kind of just stagnates and it trickles down, and if it takes us running with no money, we have to do everything ourselves, so be it, because we cannot be a part of that anymore.
How has the growth been as to getting folks involved? Are you seeing folks getting involved, or is it a slow process? Again, it's a building process, so it may not be instant success.
Oh, absolutely not. Movements take time, especially a movement that is a socialist movement in a state that you would think, you know, on the surface, people would say, oh, maybe the Democrats would be sympathetic to it. It's the complete opposite. They are maybe more interested in shucking us than the Republicans.
Okay. So what would you, so I don't know if you want to talk from a party viewpoint or if you want to talk from a Brandon James Griffin viewpoint. What is your campaign based on? What are the ideals that you are running on that are going to appeal to the voter base in the 7th Plymouth District?
Okay. There are a couple main things, and I think these are the most important things. Number one, before anything else, Massachusetts recently codified something called the Roe Act. And it passed in the House, passed in the Senate. It went to Governor Baker's desk. He vetoed it, unsurprisingly. When it came back to the Senate, it was I believe a 32-8 vote. House vote was a difference of 3 for the majority override. And if we don't protect that in this state, where do we go next? I mean, 3 votes gave us the protections that are now so vitally important. And I will fight tooth and nail for reproductive rights. There is no, I don't think there's wiggle room. There isn't.
Okay. What else? So reproductive rights is one. What else?
We need to not only designate land that may be affordable housing, we need to build it. And we can build it. Instead of selling plots for for-profit condos that I think everyone is tired of seeing, you know, wherever you are on the political spectrum, every day there's a new condo complex with a strange number of units. Well, if you read chapter 40B, the percentages, when you mix it with those odd number units, they just get sold as for-profit. And that's unacceptable. We have an opportunity not just to grow, but to build up the areas down here by this commuter rail. And of course, you know, Abington, East Bridgewater. We need for actual affordable housing, and we need to build it. And if we need to find the money to do it, we'll find the money. Again, I've never sat in the State House. I'm not an attorney, I'm not an accountant, but I know the money's there if you look. And they're making some progress with this question 1, the fair share amendment. I don't know what's going to happen once that money rolls in, if it passes. Because of course, once it gets to the state as is, it's hard to follow the money. I mean, our State House doesn't even disclose what their committees talk about.
let's talk about that. So the Fair Share Act, if that passes, there have been campaign ads that say the monies will go towards education or higher ed.
And infrastructure, yeah.
And infrastructure, which is interesting, knowing that the past few years, not only using ARPA money, but prior to that, that there was a Student Opportunity Act that was passed. Correct. That a lot of money was put towards, building the educational infrastructure and helping those communities that, like the gateway cities that are struggling when it comes to finances, and even like a Whitman-Hanson, when you have districts that are shared districts, it helps them financially.
Oh, absolutely.
As well. So talk to me about education and educational funding. Do you see something like that question being the sole source? Do you think there are other ways to be able to fund education?
Oh, that ballot question, of course, cannot be the sole source for anything. I mean, I am 100% behind it. I support it. I've endorsed it. I'm actually going to the school committee meeting Wednesday to ask for a roll call. That being said, it's one thing, and it's an untested thing. The premise, the pitch, the outline, all looks good to me. And if we see results, maybe it can grow. There are so many lines on those town budgets, a lot of them lumped in together. Transparency is difficult. I think it takes a person that really wants to dig, and I'm willing to do that, to find the funds or to see what's going where it shouldn't, or not shouldn't, but what's necessary. I'll make one more example and then we can move on. Recently, Whitman decided to drop about 50 grand on high-tech security cameras in the park. I can't imagine that that's a fruitful expense. The police station's right there. But what do they need security cameras for, I can think of 50 grand. I can think of ways to spend that, pay our planning board and selectmen and all the boards and committees, administrative assistants, pay them more. There's money right there. It's just little things like that a chunk of money that doesn't sound so large, when you split it up into things that matter to people individually, it's a big deal. You give someone a raise from $18 to $23 an hour, and they only work X amount of hours of time. It's not that big of a hit. You have that money aside, and you can just do it. The slow processes for some of these smaller things is a bit, I don't want to use the word obtuse and try and sound, but it's obtuse and lengthy for things that are obvious, like pay raises for our people that come in, and there's no set time for those meetings. They take a block of time out of their life, and they should be compensated for it.
We've talked education, we've talked housing, we've talked about your political affiliation, your party. There are other things that go into being a state representative. If you ask the regular person, the things they care about most are how are my streets and sidewalks?
Yep.
My taxes too much. Is there more being taken from me as a taxpayer, and am I seeing results? So roads, public safety, education, which we already touched upon. If there was one of those that you wanted to touch upon, have you heard the same thing from constituents or folks running for office?
Yes, of course. The word taxes is always kind of that's where it always seems to go. Taxes, property taxes, excise taxes, whatever. I don't own a home, so I don't have that experience. But while property tax is a way to increase revenue, if towns don't assess properly, it gets dicey. But I think the issue is not taxes on the individual, as in the regular person, the working class John and Jane. I think the issue is extracting money from where all the profits went, from the people who made them that money, but yet the people who made them that money, in addition to spending their time, sweat, blood, missing out on family time, soccer games, maybe they want to be an artist or a writer. If all they do is work and pay taxes for this tiny fraction of corporations and hyper wealthy people, I understand why that would irritate them. But I think some of the focus is misdirected. People discuss, oh, they want to raise taxes, he wants to lower taxes. I would like to see the people that have been robbing us since day one to start doing their share. And the Fair Share Amendment is a start, but it doesn't go far enough. I think every committee should be independent that looks at that funding and says, okay, this town needs this, that town needs that. We need to stop with this town separatism. We live in a state. State should share state funds. There's plenty. There's a $3 billion surplus.
How do you feel about that? So it's interesting you say that. I believe that the surplus was close to $7 billion. There is a provision, a legislation that when there's an excess of stabilization funding, that those tax dollars come back. It's rumored that we're going to see, we the taxpayers, those who, whatever you paid for taxes in 2021, state taxes, that you'll see a percentage. I think the number is right now being bandied about is 13%. Is that the right thing to do?
You know,
do you give the taxpayer back their money because you've overtaxed them?
Yes. But again, once those balance sheets come out, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I'm going to get what, a $38 check, you know, something, not really, but as far as it lands on the effect of me or Kevin. Yeah, I mean, it should be returned, but is it impactful? Is your 13% of only tax owed going to be this huge deal worth getting into a debate over? I think it's a simple A to A. If they took too much and you gave that, you should receive back exactly that number. I'm fine with that. The way they're pitching it is deceptive.
Okay.
It's going to be, oh, it's this big. It's not a stimulus. It's not an economy booster. It's none of that. It's a accounting error.
Okay.
And with an accounting error, you'd fix an accounting error. Common sense.
We started out, you had mentioned in regards a social issue like abortion rights,
yeah.
Right? Let's talk about other things, other social issues, homelessness. Let's talk about having problems with the opioid epidemic. What are your thoughts on those, and what, as a state representative, if you are elected, what would you like to see done when it comes to providing assistance to those who are dealing with addiction, or someone who needs housing or needs a home but doesn't have the wherewithal?
Well, often they go hand in hand, and someone who is without home, who becomes an addict, there is very little for them to do if they're unhoused. So you need to house people first and foremost. There is just a shortage that, again, is unnecessary because we have the resources to build modern, safe, whether it be temporary emergency housing for families, or even expanding shelters. And as far as addiction, I think addiction services should be free and kept out of your personal, off your personal record. It should not be considered medical history, because that in turn just kicks down on the line future troubles. Oh, they could pull up your Corey, say, oh, this person's an addict. They don't want to hire you. You don't get hired. You can't afford what you need to afford. If you have to pay for rehab, you can't pay for rehab. You can't pay for rehab after time you're wealthy. There should be no cost, but that's a bigger healthcare issue, because addiction is healthcare, mental health is healthcare, hell, dental is healthcare. That's a bigger picture, and I think universal state healthcare is an absolute necessity. With that under all covered, including reproductive rights.
Let's say if you are fortunate to be elected on November 8th, one of the things that a legislator is given or has options for are committees. Are there any committees that you would like to serve on? Is there something that, you know, you've already kind of got your eye on, or is it a matter of taking it as a wait and see approach as to what's available?
Well, not so much as to what's available. If there are options, you know, if they show me, you know, we think you'd be good for 8, I would love to sit on the joint committee on housing for the state, because I think that's a good place to at least kick ideas off of each other about where and how. Because what happens too often is they'll approve affordable housing and then it'll get bounced, and then they pigeonhole towns like Brockton and New Bedford and Lawrence, not because those towns are undeserving of quote unquote quality housing. Affordable housing should be quality housing, should be the same housing opportunities everyone else has access to. You can't thrive if you don't have somewhere to sleep. It's so simple. It's just one of those things I can't wrap my head around why we're not trying harder.
Okay. This is almost like an open question.
Yeah, sure.
It gives you an opportunity, maybe there's something we haven't talked about during our conversation, but it gives you an in to say, hey, I want to talk about A. If there's something that you want to talk about for a moment in regards to campaign trail or you know, issues that we see, community issues, what would you like to talk about?
Okay. I don't mean to get grim, but there is something right now that's, I feel, pressing. That's a pressing issue that's happening, and it involves one of the towns in the district, which is the town of Abington.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, a young woman named Sandra Birchmore, she was 23, and she committed suicide. And then it came out that 3 police officers in Stoughton had trafficked and abused this young woman since she was a member of the Explorers program, which at about the age of 13, 14. And it has come to light recently that a police officer in Abington has recently been put on paid leave in relation to this investigation. The town won't release his name. It's been rumored and alleged that it's pretty much been pinned down. I can't say the name because I don't want you to get sued. But we are fairly confident it was a school resource officer. Unacceptable. We can't have that. So they're paying this guy. Why not take his money and invest it in any of the myriad of things you just asked me about? Take his 60 grand or whatever and do something productive with it. I mean, I'm not saying his name because he hasn't been proven guilty. And that's, you know, fair. But when you're wrapped up in this type of a scandal, and the police chief of the town it is mainly focused on essentially says, yeah, these guys are no good. They all resigned before most of the investigation, and the fact that these people are around children, in whether it be an exploratory program, manning the door at a school, playing the nice cop, you know, the friendly. I mean, that's breeding ground for predators. A school. There are no people more vulnerable to predators than children in a school. I just think they shouldn't be there. But I'm more concerned with with getting to the bottom of this, because what this does is it gives you a concrete story to tell. You can't change the world with one story, but you can change your neighborhood. And I can't imagine any parent out there looks at this, a police officer who may or may not have transferred from Stoughton, comes into your town and does this. Traffics a woman. It's alleged that she was pregnant with one of the officer's children. And then, you know, that was the Farwell brothers and Robert Devine of Stoughton, and I can't give the Abington officer's name because it hasn't been publicly released. But then what happens is they come out and defend themselves and think it's totally fine. I'm just going to read this brief quote. Okay. This is just to show the entitlement and what frustrates me. This is from Robert Devine, a quote in the Globe. "I will challenge these findings in every forum available to me and anticipate legal action for multiple infractions," Devine wrote. "At least in my case, this was a politically motivated sham against an employee who has consistently spoken out against leadership. It speaks volumes that they released any findings to the media before ever notifying me." So this guy is playing the victim after what he trafficked a child. And as far as I'm concerned, these are undisputed allegations, irrefutable. And I won't assume that the Abington officer was irrefutable, but I can't imagine he's not involved, honestly. Okay. And here, 4 cops is, I don't know, what, 300 grand?
Would you say that are you pro law enforcement, or would you say you're anti?
I am anti-law enforcement.
And you would not be. So I know that there is legislation in the works, or at least that it was put forth about putting resource officers in all of the schools in the Commonwealth of Mass. You would not be in favor of that?
God, no.
Okay.
And again, I won't crutch with this. This is about Abington, so it matters. It's about the broad, but no, cops don't belong in schools.
Okay,
it's
so
ridiculous.
All right, so just a follow-up. Yeah. The thing that we are dealing with as far as a society is people going into schools and firing upon unarmed children and teachers. What's your solution? What's your solution other than locking doors? Is there another solution other than a resource officer?
Well, I don't think a resource officer is a solution at all.
No, but you talk about somebody who's armed and trained with a weapon. If in fact someone does go into a school with intentions of harming children and educators.
The thing is with that, historically they haven't done anything. They show up after the fact, and then, you know, it's the SWAT teams that come in and, you know, if it's an active shooter, that's who comes in and handles it. A teacher can make a phone call. It's a kind of a show thing. I don't know why it's been politicized. I believe when I was in high school, we had a truancy guy. But, you know, as far as school resource officer, they come in and they want to make it out to be, oh, this is your buddy, this is a counselor. Well, no, it's not. It's a cop. There's counselors and then there's cops. I don't think an armed authority figure in a school is really the message kids need to be shown, and I think parents who advocate for it are irresponsible. Not because they shouldn't be able to decide, you know, things that involve their kid, but you want an armed guard? They're just as dangerous as someone who's going to come in and shoot the place out. Okay. Arm the teachers. Whatever. Like, it's a useless waste of money. Okay. It is.
What would you like to say in closing? If folks want to find out more about your campaign, how can they do that?
Okay. So, I know people are going to have questions, and people are going to be hung up on the word socialism, and that's fine, but I want people to really think and listen to what I have to say, listen to what the Workers' Party has to say, read our program, call us, come to a meeting, learn. We are open books. We don't have the cash for fancy campaigning. Word of mouth is the thing. You can find me at bjgriffin, the number 4, mass.com. Same on Facebook, same on Twitter, and I can be reached at 508-846-0095. You can also send me an email, bjgriffin1980@outlook.com. Please reach out. I'll talk to anybody, whether you're on the political left or political right. It's not, you know, we want to talk. We want to know what you all want, so we can tell you if it's something that we can do. And don't sell us short. Don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right, Kevin. Thank you.
You got it.
Again, always support independent media.
Okay, and we want to thank you very much for tuning into this program. The idea of the program is to better inform you. Until next time, have a great day.